I will be with you from today on until Wednesday. And the topics that I will cover in these 3 days, or almost 3 days, is about the introductions in transport, intermodal transports, and also the ports where I actually work for, and about how we could do managing the port and how they are financed and what are the models that we use to manage there. And a little bit of excursus of this lecture series is also my main topic is about process management. I will give you a little bit insight of process management, how we apply these kind of science in the business, especially for the port industry, which is not quite, actually the design itself is not new, but the applying this sign in the industry is new. So it's not so many port operators or port management company who do really exclusively this kind of issues or handle these issues in the port. So the first lecture, I will be covering quite basic issues of these mode of transports, because if you are talking about the transport chain, you have to know who are actually the main actors in the transport chain, and this kind of carriers or the type, what the mode of transport is involved, and why we are talking about multimodal transport and not only the single transport modes anymore, we will tackle in this lecture. In case that you have any questions, please raise hands up immediately and I will get to you on the answer. So the picture of the transport chain is actually some of you might quite familiar already, because it's it's a classical one where you have somewhere the one who have the interest on selling something, and the other end of the world you have another person who would like to buy something. As you know, in the daily trade nowadays, that there are so many intermediaries along the transport chain, and if we could split them into phases, you would see that there are, on the one hand, you have someone on the export side, you have someone on the import side, and how the goods get to us as an importer or as an end consumer is mostly the overseas transport, which could be done by plane or by sea. And in between, you see on the export side, the actors that are involved are more or less the same as on the import side. That you will have, firstly, from the export side, you have manufacturers who produce something. Then you have someone who take care of the transportation of the warehousing to store before the goods are exported. And you have someone who take care of the transport inland before it gets to the port, seaport or airport, so that the goods can be flown over to another side of the world, or maybe into just another continent or the country. And then on the import side, you also have these kind of people doing some distribution, some freight forwarding, so that the goods can get to the end customer on the retail basis. The transport modes that we will talk today are these 5 modes, and they are the most used modes actually. I cannot say that what kind of percentage that they are used, but I would say that the balance of the uses are quite. If according to the volume of the cargo exporting or importing, the waterborne transport would be the most one. But if we are talking about the value, that exporting or transported nowadays. Maybe the air cargo, because the air cargo transport mostly the most expensive goods, because it needs the short transit time and need high securities on the transport chain. And there are some characteristics that we will talk also today. What kind of goods that might be suitable for each transport mode. So then we will start on the air transports. Mostly, once we are talking about the air transport, we would talk about on the demand that you would say it may be seasonal. For example, fruit. You see also some nowadays. If you go to the supermarket, you will find fruits that may be from the other side of the world. Rambutan from Thailand, for example, or mangosteen from Southeast Asia, or durian. Durian is actually not really allowed to be transported, but some of these demand are seasonal and sometimes not predictable. It's up to also the plantations or situation in the country as well, or if they have like excess supply, if they produce too much and cannot be consumed in their own country, they would be exporting, and that's why such a demand is not predictable. And how you could really get this cargo to the end customer immediately or the fastest way, you would use air transports. That is actually the idea behind. Then you will have some typical commodity on this air cargo, which is first thing perishables. Perishables, you know, this is vegetables, fruits, those kind of stuff, or something which is quick, subject to quick obsolescence, and or you need on short notice. For example, if you have a very big productions on electronics or whatsoever in Germany, and there's a bit lack of the parts which you need in your production process, and you cannot really wait anymore for the shippings or the transports lots on the ship. So, and you wouldn't like also to stop your production process because it would cost you $1 million. So such kind of a short notice demand would also play in the transport of the air cargo. Or you would have valuable cargoes which are transported. For example, jewelries imitates or money. You transport it by air, but don't plan to rob any Securitas or. But this is the typical commodity for that. Or you have something that it's also very expensive to handle or store, because some of the parts of electronics you need also like temperature controlled, or you need a very special care on that along the transportations. You need a high security on the transportation chain. That is the most typical commodity, and the most favorable goods that I had when I worked for Lufthansa Cargo, it was actually kind of live animals, or really perishables, and or sometimes the medical goods. If you have like a heart plantations or something like that, you have the cells that has to be transported and has to be overnight transported to Europe, and those kind of things you would transport by air. Yes, Eugenia?
Yeah, I have a question about transporting by air live animals. How does it work? Where do you actually, do you need special airport, special facilities? Like, how does it work, the process?
Okay, mostly ones that you would like to transport animals. If it's a common animal, for example, live chickens or live fish, which are transported daily or sometimes regularly, so you would already have like a spatial storage for that you prepare for those. But if you have, for example, that sometimes they are the move for an animal for a zoo, you need also so many papers, governmental documents that you really guarantee that the animals is not infected, and you have you need to follow all these veterinarian procedures, and you need also to contact airline very much in advance, because some animals are very sensitive and cannot be loaded besides specific cargo. And in air transport, you have to plan very much in advance for such kind of cargo. But if it's like a live chicken, in the time that I work with Lufthansa, I have live chicken every day. It's a small chicken. So it was transported. It's packed as it's instructed by the airline, so that it have enough air for breathing, so that it will not die when arriving in Manila, for example. And or the live fish, you have to calculate the oxygens, how much oxygen that you have to put in the water so that it could stay alive when arrive at the destination. So, and once that on the loading process is quite critical, because once the animals is moved, so you have to be careful that they are not going over to each other, and so that they can have the space properly, and how they could be latched so that it's secure enough once taking off and landing. Yeah. And when it's imported, so it's in the destination, so you have to check it again, how many dies or still alive, and if it's still in good condition or not. Yeah. So you have to really, those kind of cargoes, you have to really check the status of the conditions of goods very regularly. Yeah. And that's why the transportation by air, you have to document all those risky process steps that could occur during the transportation, because then you have to insure your cargo. Every cargo that has been transported, you have to apply for an insurance policies, and they will calculate the premium of your cargo insurance according to the risks that could occur during the transportation. And mostly for the air cargo is quite high comparing to the sea transport. Why air transport is important? So it's actually, for me, it's another main driver for the globalizations, because nowadays you try to calculate everything just in time. Once that you would like to do your production efficiently, you need this planning ability. And by using air transports and maybe other mode of transport, you could also fulfill the requirements that maybe the customer or your company has set up. And the air transport has been really boosted or popular since that there are many more aircraft type that could response to the needs on the market. For example, nowadays you would see a very big jet, A380, which carry a lot of people, or you have special aircraft type with only support the cargo transportation of a very heavy lift cargo. And it's another supplement, I would say, another supplement or complementary products or service to the sea transport and the other transport, because it's the fastest mode comparing to the other, maybe the safest mode. And according to the demand and supply in the transports, at the end, the consumer or the person who paid the transport will decide if my cargo really worth to be transported by air. So I have a small video here for you, just to have some insights how air transportations could look like. Firstly, this video is from Hong Kong Air Cargo.
Super Terminal 1 has the facilities to handle virtually any type of air cargo. For those shipping specially valuable cargo, Super Terminal 1 offers an ultra-secure, custom-designed facility which can accommodate 9 armored vehicles simultaneously. Hachtel's Perishables Handling Center features a dedicated airside customs clearance facility for the fast release of shipments. This is directly connected to 2 temperature-controlled cold rooms with a combined storage area of over 2,500 square meters. The unitized cool freezer room alone has a capacity equivalent to 1.5 747 freighters. Hachtel speeds express cargo on its way via a dedicated 2-floor, 40,000 square meter express center, complete with its own customs clearance facility. The express center has a capacity for over 400,000 tons of express cargo a year. Super Terminal 1 also maintains separate facilities for handling dangerous or radioactive goods. These are amongst the safest of their kind in the world. Hachtel also offers facilities for live animals and outsized cargoes. If it can go by air, Hachtel can handle it.
So there are lots of these videos on YouTube. If you are interested, I think that it's also worth to click in. I have also another video from DHL, which has been recorded by the Deutsche Welle. Do you know Deutsche Welle? It's a German channel for the foreigner.
It's 10 p.m. at Leipzig Airport, and for these DHL employees, the day is just beginning. At DHL, the night shift gets underway as the rest of Leipzig is heading to bed. An Airbus has just arrived from Sweden, bringing freight that has to be sorted and flown on to destinations all over the world. In a few hours, the same plane will return to Sweden with parcels from Asia and America. It's Andreas Siemens' job to make sure everything runs to plan. His team have 45 minutes to unload 28 containers from the plane. There's no room for error.
The takeoff times are agreed and submitted in advance. The planes have to leave within that specific window. If they don't, we lose that slot and have to ask for a new one. That takes time, and delays don't just mean we lose time, but also money.
Freight that misses a connection has to be booked onto another flight, and that's costly. Everything's going to plan tonight. The weather's dry and clear, and there are no technical problems. Each night, the crew handle 1,500 tons of letters, parcels, and every now and then, more exotic freight.
We handle every imaginable type of freight, sometimes even animals. Last winter, we had a snow leopard, which got a lot of media attention. We also transport cars and plants. Basically, if you can ship it, we can handle it.
But tonight, no live animals, not even mice or hamsters, are being shipped. Meanwhile, in the distribution centre, incoming freight is sorted by 800 overnight workers. They unload the parcels from the freight containers by hand, being careful not to break anything. With parcels weighing up to 30 kilos, it's a job that demands strength and stamina.
It is strenuous, especially when we have to reach high up to get the parcels or carry heavy bags. You tend to get tired towards the end of the shift, and you're glad by the time you can go home.
The sorting system is highly automated and can therefore work tirelessly. The scanner reads the addresses and sends the parcels to the right exit via a conveyor belt stretching 6 kilometers. It can handle up to 60,000 parcels an hour. These parcels are about to embark on the next leg of their journey. Customers can track the progress of their parcels via the internet.
When the parcel arrives, the entire container is scanned into the system, so the customer can see that it has arrived in Leipzig. And then we scan it again here before it leaves, so again the customer can see that the parcel is leaving on the next flight.
Out on the airfield, there's a problem in one of the Boeings. The container won't budge, and a struggle ensues. The supervisors are becoming restless. If it takes much longer, the plane could miss its departure slot.
So that was some of the impressions. So it's actually the video is still continuing, but it's broken. But I think you maybe... Yeah, it could be. But you already get some impression how the air freight works, right? If you have noticed in the video, you will see also that air cargo has container. Did you see it? Yes, and it's actually these containers are also standardized, but it's up to the aircraft type that you are flying. So you would have these associated container types so that it fits exactly into the compartment of the loading space. But it's still the air cargo loading and unloading are still very much more handmade for the labor. So the next transport mode that we will talk is road transport. The road transport is has been presumed that it's the most flexible and could respond to a very quick demand. Because if you would like to have something for the short distance, you just get on the truck or you get on the car and then you could deliver it. And from this aspect, it's really served the door-to-door perspective without that you need a lot of transshipment, that you have to reload it and load it again on another type of equipment. And you could have also this type of transport by using combination of a ro-ro vessel. Do you know what ro-ro vessel is? Row on, row off, meaning that you put something on a vehicle which is rowable, and then you drive it on a ship, and then once the ship is arriving at the destination, you drive it further with your cargo. But the road transport has been criticized for many years already because about the environmental impact of that, and also the because it contributes to the traffic jam, for example. It contributes to a lot CO2 footprint comparing to the other transport modes. We will see at the end of this presentation of the lecture. I have a slide where we have compared how much CO2 for the same cargo amount or the same distance. Which mode of transport has produced the CO2 footprint. And also in the road transport, the labor situation is also not really well regulated. Sometimes it's we have the situation that they are exploited on the truck driver, and the truck driver actually they should have a rest, but they couldn't take a rest because the tour has been planned so fully so that they cannot really commit to the regulation that, for example, the European Commission has been set up. We have some of the, mostly I guess that there are many trucks types. Here I would like to show some truck types which is not commonly used maybe on the road that you would see on the highway in Germany. On the highway in Germany, you already seen so many truck types, but the one that I've seen, I put here, it's some of the concept that is implemented, but maybe just for some implementable in some regional. For example, this kind of a road train, you see that so the driving unit, it look like a truck, but then it could be could connect with many tractor units so that it could transport more efficiently by using only one trailer. And this kind of truck is mostly used in or practiced in a very not congested area. If you imagine to implement or deploy such a truck in Bremen, it would not be possible. So this kind of truck would be especially doing, for example, very long distance transportations for the area, for example, Argentina, where land has still very not occupied, or the USA. You know the US highway. They are also quite big, and sometimes they're long distance on the highway. Canada, for example, Mexico and Australia, and the typical cargo for those kind of trucks are crude oil or already produced oil. I mean, for fuel, petrol, oil, for example, and that's why. To be very efficient in the transportation, they try to use new concepts on that. In road transport, we have also some other elements which, or some concept that we use together mostly, which is the cross-docking. Who know what cross-docking means?
It means a truck goes into a terminal, maybe a warehouse somewhere. It goes in and it can immediately goes out. I don't know how to explain that. Yeah. But you can take the cargo off from back.
Yes. It's you would see mostly, for example, if you see DHL or Schiebel. I don't know if you visit those company already, but if you have a chance to visit that, most of these very big logistic company or where they also operate a warehouse, they would have this cross-docking concept in the implementation. It's quite simple actually, because in the warehouse itself, you would have a loading and unloading space where you could already prepare some goods where to be loaded, in which trucks. And once the trucks arrive, the trucks drive to this dock. I would say it is a dock. Mostly there is a number which docks you have to attach. And then once that when the truck driver has already attached the truck with the docks, so you could open, the truck could be opened, and then the loading and unloading process starts immediately, so that you would not lose much time on the loading and unloading process. Yes.
Okay. Since I have been working in distribution center for many time, so I know dock is a place that you just move the truck inside the warehouse, but just a little bit. The reason because some truck didn't load from the back, they can loading from the side. The side, yeah. Side also, so they have to design the dock inside also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and from this point of view, once that you combined the vehicle with the warehousing concept, so we have also this advantage and disadvantage of these principles. Firstly, you would save time for the loading and unloading a truck, and also reduce the handling cost. And also the distributor could get more faster to the customer on the retail process, and you may also be able to coordinate this just-in-time supply chain. But on the other hand, they also have disadvantages. Once that you would like to set up such systems, you have to know what are the network of your warehouse, where you could really go there and load your cargo on the inbound journey or outbound journey, because otherwise you will have, if you don't have such a network, you would have no cargo, maybe on one route that you drive on the transport. And you need also a certain fleet size that you operate. You cannot have only one truck and you build up a warehouse with a cross-docking. Doesn't make sense. For such a logistics system, you also might need a high investment on the first setup, because it needs to be really calculated, very concrete planning. You need an accurate planning for the process, that you have a sorting, for example, you have labeling in your warehouse, and those kind of process has to be well managed. And that's why most of the time when you set up such a cross-docking warehouse, you have a high investment cost. And yes, and if you don't plan well, maybe you have loaded one place and unloaded another place. One additional handling or this loading or unloading could really cause damage to the goods at the end. So, any questions? No. Yeah.
What is inbound logistics in this case?
Inbound logistics is actually once you have. If you are looking at the international trade, inbound is actually import, and outbound is export. But for a perspective of a warehouse, Inbound is something which is coming in, and outbound is what is coming out from the warehouse, actually.
Some comment about the truck fleet.
Mm-hmm.
There is not only concern about the four-wheel or or the brick truck or normal truck, but in each kind of mode, they are also have different size,
Mm-hmm.
like Japanese size of car and
Yes.
European size of car. There is also different, and also in Middle East they have a big four-wheel pickup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're going to calculate some freight for your docking, so you have to concern those things also.
Yes. Thank you. So the next mode of transport, we will talk about rail. I suppose that everyone has been traveling by rail. Rail also claim themselves that they has a very high level of safety, high efficiency of energy consumptions, less carbon footprint than the air transport, and also than the road transports. And one of the advantage of rail transportation is also that it could carry a quite large amount of cargo at once, because of the rail system that you have many wagons for one logs. You have lots of possibilities to load high capacity of cargo. And once that you have you would like to build a rail track, mostly you need not so much land than for the road transports that you may need for normal car and for the trucks, and then that's why you need maybe 2 or 3 lanes roads. And but there's also some weakness on the rail transport, is that you cannot put the rail anyway. You need the track. So it's not just that you would like to transport by rail and you could just start. So you need a track for that. And to get to that infrastructure first, to really plan the infrastructure network for rail across country or even inter-regional is quite difficult, because it's lots of investment needed, and maybe policy issues that you have to discuss with many stakeholders, and that's why some of the country has not really growing in such a rail infrastructure. For example, Thailand. Less flexible than road transport. That's because of these factor that you cannot really just put rail anywhere, and then you can start with the transportation. If you have no good infrastructure, it will lead also to the service levels that you could provide to the end customers. And at the end, if you don't be able to satisfy the needs on the rail services, then the customer might leave away from you, and they will not send the cargo. So the qualities on the rail transportations is very important also to maintain the level of the transportation, so that it would not lead to disruption on the revenue. We have also here some concepts of the train, which makes the train transportations more efficiently. I've take here a concept from Hamburg, which we have this block train. The operator is named Polsuk. It's train services, which it's like a bus services that it's scheduled frequently. You know exactly once that the rail will be departing the port of Hamburg, and the destination is the same. For example, to Poland, to Warsaw, or from Rotterdam, Bremen, Hamburg, Poland. This is the regular routes on that, and this is the one concept that has been quite successful in the last 10 years, which we could really promote the train transportations as an alternative to road transports, because you could guarantee the arrival time. You could transport more cargo than the truck could do, and it's also more inland than a short sea shipping or a feeder could do. So it's another alternative for the shippers or for the freight forwarding companies also to use such a concept. And this is the shunting stations in Hamburg. So there are in total for shunting 26 tracks that you would shunt the train within the port area. So for the port, it's very, very important infrastructures, because nowadays we have a lot of the railway operators. It's not only the Deutsche Bahn, but there are 100 more others which would operate their rail transportation themselves. And so that they could be shunted efficiently, we need such an infrastructure also in the port area itself. Here is another example which give a more picture on the European level, that there is an initiative which is called RailNet Europe. It's actually an association established by the European Commission to support and enable the rail transportation, rail infrastructure within Europe. And they have also identified what kind of rail corridors that Europe needs and which countries are involved. Nowadays, there are 38 members on the rail infrastructure management companies, and that network covers more than 200,000 kilometers, which is quite a lot. And they try to synchronize the process on for example, the timetabling, on the marketing, sale approach, that the rail transportation can be promoted, also cooperation in some operational areas, and exchange information, for example, once the train will cross border, and have some after-sale service, for example, reportings, what kind of train use which corridors, or cargo which are transported by specific corridors, so that you know exactly what kind of customer you have, and what kind of infrastructure that has to be renewed if the occupations of the track is high, for example. Yeah, please.
Okay, since there is like a big picture over here, so is that you're going to provide all the routing to who? Because since like air transport, you're going to say, okay, today we will have this flight on this level in the air, but for rail you have only one track, and then once time you can use it.
Yeah, that's why they have set up this
Yes.
RailNet, so that it's kind of a consortium, it's a kind of partner network that everyone will agree if a new route or new services to be introduced, who is going to have the lead on that. for example. In which country, who is going to promote that on the first hand, and it could be done only by that way, because on the rail, in the rail operators network, we don't have these supranational associations or who really regulate or give the permission exclusively to specific airline, like ICAO in air cargo, for example, or in airline per se. The other transport mode here is pipeline. Have you ever thought that a pipeline could be also a transport mode? A pipeline is typically used for only specific type of cargo. It's not for all, but for some cargo types, it's very efficient. You can guarantee that most of the time there will no freight lost, meaning that someone could just pick up some examples or some samples from your freight. So it's very close systems that principally cannot be leaked. You have also the automation. Most of the process in such a transportation network is automated, and a lot of mechanism behind, and it's also very low cost if you have already the infrastructure. At the end, once you have the economy of scales, this kind of transportation type is quite efficient. So a typical commodity for pipeline freight is, for example, liquid, for example, oil, chemical liquids, or beer.
I never heard of beer.
There's a very big pipeline network somewhere, I think in Hessen, in near to Frankfurt, also which is cover about 200 kilometers, and deliver beers to many breweries, and that's it. I didn't hear before also, but. Since I heard about that, I tried to find more information about that, but I found it interesting. I know already that pipeline used for oil, chemical liquids, coal, for example, and used for gas. But beers are one of the commodity that use pipeline. Yeah, and gas. Yes.
Okay. So, but the thing is, obviously, they can't have the same pipeline for beer and a chemical.
No,
right?
no.
And then,
no.
So the maintenance must be really high on these pipes, right? Because they have to make sure that there's no like molding happening or
yes.
something happening to the
yes.
liquid. Okay.
Yes.
And, one question, please. When the beer are transported, they are not in bottles. They are just in the pipeline.
Yes. It's a wholesaler. And one interesting commodity is coal. Once the coal will be transported in the pipeline, mostly they will be mixed with the water, so that the water could be used as using for flow as a facilitator for transportation process. And this is very, very typical. So that you have quite efficient.
I think for this mode, for myself, I think it's high risky. Mm-hmm. Because I heard many news in Middle East that there is some bombing.
Yes, that is a factors that you have to definitely concern before, make an analysis before that you would lay a pipeline network in that area. But for example, I would also not lay a pipeline network in a very high risk of earthquake area.
Oh yeah.
So you know once before you plan such an infrastructure, you have to analyze, calculate all those risks before that you do the investment.
I want to ask anybody, is anybody aware of Nabucco project? Nabucco project, is anybody aware?
No?
It's a project which is European Union wanted to mount with Turkmenistan. It's under a water pipeline project under Caspian Sea.
I heard another project which is for the gas between Russian and I think another...
No, that was South Stream, yeah?
Yeah, South Stream, yeah.
North Stream and South Stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why European Union wants to make this project with Turkmenistan, because the most gas supplies are being carried from Russia. That's why they depend on Russian gas supplies. So they want to make different. I'm just asking whether it is cheaper to build the pipeline under Caspian Sea or like a transport on by ship.
It could be the pipeline infrastructure company, or it could be, and then the refineries or the gas company would rent or lease them, or it could be that the pipeline company also give the shares or invest on the shares. There are so many financing model of that, but mostly once that you start such a project, you have to design the financial model on such a specific project separately. And how it can be refinanced also, so that it could be maintained and it could be operated for long run. We will talk about that on the port financing. There are some of examples on how the project financing is working.
Why the cost is low here? Because you have different rates for everything like coal, beer, etc.
I didn't get the first question.
Why the cost is low here?
The cost is low because once that you set up these infrastructures, you transport with a very high volume of cargo. Up to the point of view, you have this economy of scale. The cost per unit will be lower at the time. Yeah. So there are also many pipeline types. First, we have the gathering pipelines, which is a group of small pipelines which is interconnected at some point, and be connected to a quite a complex network. This kind of pipeline mostly used for the crude oil industry. And then you have the transportation pipeline, which are quite large diameters that you connect between the cities so that some of the specific commodities could be moved. For example, gas line or pump station also for petroleum products, or multi-product pipeline. There are also pipeline which you could really define in sections, and you have one pipeline, but you have many compartments that is divided in segments, and then you integrate it in one. Then you have distribution pipeline or feeder pipeline. If you know the concept of the big vessel and the feeder vessels, it's the same here. So now we come to the most, actually I think that you would be most interested because you are studying the maritime transport. The waterborne concept is you could include first the overseas waterborne, and then you have the inland waterway. And nowadays you have to see this kind of waterborne types in an integrated network. That you say you cannot just observe only the overseas transportations, but inland waterway become also more important. So the characteristic of the waterborne transport is that you have most of the time large vehicles, and the largest vehicle for freight transport nowadays is a vessel. There's no other vehicle bigger than a vessel. For example, the tanker, or for the container vessel is nowadays, who knows which is the biggest container vessel in the world now? No? It's a CMA, CGM, Marco Polo. Yeah. No, yes, that's the one. Yes, Marco Polo. It was the first time calling Hamburg in December 2012. I think 18,000. I think. Not sure, but I have to check, but I think it's 10,000. But we will be facing such a container size, container vessel size, a lot more. And it is very challenging for us as a river port, for example, because we have limited channels width, and turning such a ship is really challenging task.
For what route is this? For what rotation is used this vessel? I'm just curious, like the trade between what continents? Asia,
Asia, yeah. It was bounding to China. Yeah, where else? So typical commodity you have here, more or less, containerized cargo, general cargo, bulk, both solid and liquid cargo, project and heavy lift cargo. So these are most typical commodity because of the size of the cargo and how the unitize or load unitizations of this cargo type. So I would like to give you some overview from the review of maritime transport 2012, which has been launched every year by UNCTAD. UNCTAD summarizes this report every year for maritime transport sectors, and most of the content in the maritime transport review is that how the development of this sector has been going. And if you see here, we have already reached the seaborne trades of 8.7 billion tons. I mean, it's very, very big amount of cargo that we are moving around the world by sea. And the world fleet of the vessel grew by 37% in 4 years when we are back in 2008. But you remember in 2008, the crisis, the financial crisis had just started. The vessel, the shipping line was really ordering the vessels in that time because they still start thinking, oh, there will be, the boom will continue, but then it drops. And therefore, we have a very unfortunate situation for the shipping industry is that the demand and supply is not balanced anymore. So the freight rate is not attractive for the shipping lines, for the shipping operators, and become an unprofitable sector for the carrier.
Just a comment, because I did my internship in a shipping line, so the biggest problem that they have where the freight rates are so high is the oil price, because that's the biggest the cost driver in the shipping for a shipping line. So as the oil price goes up and down, and mostly up, then it's.
And also the imbalance between in and out is a big problem too. And sometimes the shipping lines have negative cost and negative sales in order to promote that.
Yes. So if you see also in this report, you will figure out that for example, the container port throughput, even though we are suffering on the financial crisis, but the container throughput still increase. And 6% is actually also quite amount.